everyone, my name is Madame Macabre, and welcome back to part number 5 of my How to Read Tarot series. This is it, guys. We are winding down. There is only one more part to this course, and you should have a complete study guide to get you on your feet and reading tarot all on your own. Today, we're going to pick up right where we left off, diving directly into the suit of swords. And as we are all well aware by now, aces in numerology and tarot being the ones, we start our journey with the Ace of Swords. So as we're well aware, in tarot, aces equal ones, and ones are new beginnings, and swords are the suit of clarity and mental logic and intellect. So, using those two things, we can ascertain that when this card appears, it is about breakthroughs, new ideas, mental clarity, and good decisions. Following that same vein, when this card appears in reverse, it means your judgment or communication is clouded right now. The situation may have even regressed into a state of chaos and total confusion. Any clarity you thought you had on the situation vanished, and it's now just a big mess. Next up, we have the Two of Swords. This card has a lot to do with decisions, generally tough decisions. You have to make a choice and you are feeling indecisive. You may even find yourself at a stalemate. There will likely be no true winner from this choice. In your gut, however, you likely already have an inkling of what you need to do. If you notice the woman blindfolded in this picture, when your physical sight goes away, that's often a visual cue that now your intuition is heightened. So listen to your gut, because I know it's scary, I know it's hard to go forward, but your gut likely knows the way out of this. Now, regardless of the position, this card tells of a difficult decision to make, but when it is in reverse, it's kind of telling you that you are really caught between a rock and a hard place, and that is making it very difficult. You're not sure what the right choice is because both seem to have negative consequences. You may be too overwhelmed to choose right now. And ultimately, you may be being forced to be stuck in the middle of two different sides. This card is telling you you cannot play peacekeeper in this one. In the end, you are going to have to pick a side. Following that, we have the Three of Swords. Now, this card has a lot to do with rejection and betrayal. Perhaps a relationship ending or a traumatic experience even. It has to do with sorrow and grief. You've lost something important. Perhaps you've even lost a loved one. This card could also speak on a decision having backfired. But a more positive way to look at this card is that pain is necessary in life. You need to learn from it and grow stronger and wiser as a consequence. Allow yourself to grieve, cry it out, and you'll feel better. Now, in reverse, this card is a little bit less depressing. It speaks on releasing pain, forgiveness, and getting that optimism back. Perhaps you recently went through a rough patch, maybe a relationship ended or you experienced really challenging times. A loved one passed or something really traumatic happened. Either way, this card appearing in the reverse position is telling you that you are finally ready to move forward. You've had a chance to grieve, and now you are finally ready for the next step. And next is the Four of Swords. Fours, again, being numbers of stability. The Four of Swords tells you you need to stabilize your thoughts and your mind. Now is the time to take a moment to rest and meditate. You don't want to rush into anything right now. Instead, slow down, breathe, and gather your strength for the battle that is to come. Now, in reverse, this card tells you that you are feeling restless, that you're wanting to do everything all at once. Your body is so tired even though your mind pushes you on. When you see this card, it is screaming at you. You need to slow down. Stop trying to rush and avoid a period of contemplation. You need it. Alternatively, this card may also be telling you that you have been stuck in this period for too long, and now you're frustrated at the lack of progress. Maybe you have had enough meditation and you're ready to move forward. Then we have the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is an interesting card. Though it speaks of victory, it also has tension and conflict associated with it. This sort of represents winning the battle, but potentially losing the war, or simply winning the battle at all costs. Make sure you are not getting so lost in the battle that you lose sight of what it is that you actually want. You may need to change the way you are communicating to get what you want, rather than just winning the argument. Again, 5 being a number of change. Contemplate that. Now, in reverse, this card is telling you you are tired of the conflict and the fighting and realize that if it goes on, there will be no winners. You are more open to change and compromise now. Alternatively, you may have tried to walk away from a conflict, but another party just won't let you. And if that's the case, you need to be careful to avoid them. And finally, this could also mean an old wound may have reopened and you're now struggling with an old resentment that is fresh. And the 6 of Swords is next. The 6 of Swords is one of a regretful transition. What that means is in order to find peace and balance, you're going to have to go forward and move on, but this is going to require leaving things behind. You have to let go of something in order to truly move forward. And this is not going to be an easy thing to let go of. It's going to be something that is hard to let go of, but you know in your heart that letting it go is truly the only way you can fully move forward and grow. Now, in reverse, this card is telling you that you know you need to move on, but gosh, you are really struggling to let it go. This could be presented in an old, unresolved issue that's rearing its head. Perhaps you're doubting if letting go was the right thing to do. This card is encouraging you to persevere and keep moving on. Alternatively, you may be resisting a necessary transition, which is only delaying your ultimate progress. Moving along, we have the 7 of Swords. The 7 of Swords, what I like to call the sneak thief card. This card is an indicator of betrayal and deception. This also could speak of a potential energy vampire or a negative and toxic person in your life. You need to identify the source of this and avoid and remove it. This could also speak of a dishonest, unfaithful partner. Either way, if this appears in your spread, you need to be on your guard because someone around you is not trustworthy. Now, when in reverse, it's less of a warning of things to come and more of telling you you have been betrayed, you have been deceived. Someone took advantage of your trust and they hurt you. This person may be beginning to feel remorse for this, but it's not a guarantee. If cheating, the parties no longer want to maintain the charade and are ready to come out and finally be honest about it. Next up is the 8 of Swords. Similar to the 2 of Swords, the 8 of Swords is also speaking of a difficult decision. Unfortunately, this one's even tougher than the 2 of Swords. I like to call this card the damned if you do, damned if you don't card. Basically, regardless of what the correct and right decision is, there will be painful consequences. There is no way through this decision without somebody feeling hurt. The good news is that this is just in the short term, and in the long term, things will work out for the better. Unfortunately, there's no denying, regardless which path you take, somebody's gonna be hurtin'. Now, when in the reversed position, this card says you were in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation that was difficult to navigate, but you put your foot down and you finally made that choice. Doing so probably hurt, but you made the choice, you ripped the band-aid, and as a result, you feel so much better not being stuck in limbo anymore. And nearing the end of our journey, we have the 9 of Swords. The 9 of Swords is a card of mental anguish. It speaks of depression, anxiety, and nightmares. You are likely losing sleep over such worries. And these worries are likely legitimate. There are things that are actually affecting you, actually challenges and obstacles. Though it is likely that you are inflating them a bit unreasonably to the point where, yes, they're serious, but you might be freaking yourself out more than you need to. Now, when this card appears in reverse, however, it's a sign you are absolutely making a mountain out of molehills. You are making yourself sick over things that don't have to be that complicated. Essentially, you are making a boogeyman out of things that might not even actually be there. So when this card appears in this position, it's asking you to step back and evaluate your situation. Are you getting yourself all worked up over nothing? And finally, of course, we have the 10 of Swords. And this poor guy, 10 swords in his back. As I like to say, well, he ain't getting any deader. Basically, when this card appears, it is telling you the situation is done. No amount of communication, no amount of thinking, no amount of changes is ever going to fix it. It's over. Let it die. I mean, on the more positive side, It officially cannot get any worse. You've hit rock bottom. You can finally just let it go and move on. The blessing of this card is that if you have been holding out hope, denying yourself other opportunities, making yourself sick, just wanting one thing that you know in your heart won't work out, this is a sign it's time to let it go and move on. Now, the meaning can be slightly different when it's in reverse. This card could be telling you that because of a painful loss, you have reevaluated your future plans. This was traumatic, but this change in your life attitude can actually be a positive one. Alternatively, you may be refusing to let a dead situation die. You're ignoring the message of the upright, and now the reverse is telling you, hey, it's been dead for a while, you have got to let it go. And finally, you might still be carrying around wounds from an old hurt. You need to deal with these and let them heal because it is long past the time of moving on. Moving right along, we're going to go into the court cards now. First up is the Page of Swords. When the Page of Swords appears, it is one heralding new ideas and a thirst for knowledge. You are bursting with new ideas, and you are curious about something and are just bursting with energy for it. I guess the question here is, can you maintain that energy? You are just at the exploratory phase yet. You might not be ready to fully lay down groundwork, but you are brimming with inspiration at the moment. Now, when this card appears in reverse, it could be telling you that you might be biting your tongue on something important to you, or you are all talk, but absolutely no action. You could be acting hastily and not thinking. So again, if this card appears, be a little bit thoughtful about these things. Now, when this card appears in reverse, it could be telling you that you might actually be biting your tongue on something that's important to you, or alternatively, you're all talk and no action. Perhaps even you're hastily acting and not thinking. And finally, this card could be telling you that the environment is off at the moment, so things could go sideways on you very easily if you try to just jump in and pursue your idea now. Following in suit, we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is a very assertive card. He speaks of ambition, he is action-oriented, and he is driven to success with his fast thinking. This card tells you that you are highly motivated and the idea of obstacles do not faze you. This card can be acting as a sign that it's time for you to charge forward and finally take action. Alternatively, in reverse, this card could be telling you that you have all this immense energy, but you have nowhere to use it, and it's got you kind of frustrated. There's little direction, and perhaps you're making rash decisions. This card could also be a warning that you need to slow down or you are going to face some serious burnout. Next up is the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is a quick thinker. She is extremely organized and perceptive. She is also unbiased and has clear boundaries. This card is assigned to collect yourself and prepare so that you may act thoughtfully. Are you a perceptive and organized person? These are things you need. You may also need to perfect the craft of setting strong boundaries and not being afraid to enforce them. So when upright, this card is telling you that you need to be analytical and you need to be organized. But when in reverse, this card is telling you that while those are great things to do, make sure that you don't carry forward getting too out of hand with that. Not everyone is going to respond well to what they perceive as cold-heartedness and cruelty. So keep that in check. After all, you may be logic-minded, but there are people that you might need the help of who are emotionally driven. And alternatively, if you are not naturally the organized and analytical type, this card is telling you do not let yourself become too emotional when reaching out. You need to keep a steady hand. Do not let personal relationships cloud your judgment. And finishing off the suit of swords, we have the King. The King of Swords is also known as the perfect advisor. He has mental clarity, intellectual power, authority, truth, and good judgment. You have the clarity needed to take charge. You have good judgment, so become the king. Seize that power and energy. Now, when in reverse, this card is a warning not to go overboard with those things. Just because you have the power to manipulate or bully people into getting your way does not mean you should. This could be you or somebody who's doing these things to you, by the way. Whatever the case, this card is kind of a warning of the whole with great power comes great responsibility, so don't become a tyrant. And that is it for today's lesson. I hope you have found it useful. If you've been taking notes, you are almost done with your study guide. Thanks for hanging in there with me. You have got this. Before you know it, you are going to be reading tarot like a champ. As always, I will catch you all next time, and until then, stay safe and merry met, friends. Bye!